3 days ago I died, except I didn't. The funeral home had my body. The obituary was in the paper with a photo from my 60th birthday party, the one where I was smiling, surrounded by family who loved me. Or so I thought. 200 people RSVP'd to come say goodbye. My daughter-in-law bought a white dress, white, for my funeral. My son had already called a realtor about my house before my body was even cold. But here's what they didn't know. The woman in that coffin wasn't me. And I was watching everything. Every word, every lie, every betrayal. All of it streaming live to my laptop from 12 hidden cameras I'd installed throughout the funeral home. For 6 months, I'd been hearing whispers through walls I wasn't supposed to hear through. When she finally goes, once we get the house, she's taking too long to die. My own family. The people I'd sacrificed everything for. Waiting, planning, calculating how much my life was worth in dollars and cents. So I made a decision. If they wanted me dead so badly, I'd give them exactly what they wanted. I'd disappear. I'd let them think they'd won. And then, at the moment of their greatest triumph, I'd show them, and the entire world, exactly who they really were. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 64 years old. I've been a registered nurse for 42 years. I raised my son alone after my husband died of cancer when Derek was only 7. I worked 3 jobs. I never remarried. I poured every ounce of my energy, every dollar I earned, every moment of my life into giving that boy the future he deserved. And this is the story of how I faked my own death to expose the people I loved most in this world. But to understand how we got to that funeral, you need to know where it all started. You need to know about the night I realized my own family was planning to kill me. Let me take you back 6 months. March. Spring was just beginning to break through the gray winter that had seemed endless. I was in my kitchen, the kitchen I'd renovated with my own retirement savings, the kitchen where I'd taught Derek to bake chocolate chip cookies when he was 5, where we'd celebrated every birthday and holiday for decades, making dinner for my son and his wife. Derek had been married to Victoria for 3 years by then. She came into our lives like a whirlwind, beautiful, charming, educated, master's degree in marketing, high-powered job at a prestigious downtown firm. She was everything I thought Derek deserved, confident, successful, independent. But there were signs. Small ones, the kind you dismiss because you want so desperately to believe your child has found happiness. Victoria never said thank you. Not once in 3 years. When I'd given them $5,000 for their wedding, she'd said, "This'll help with the photographer." Not thank you, just an acknowledgement that the money existed. When I'd paid for their honeymoon to Italy, $12,000 from my retirement fund, she'd shown me photos while complaining that the hotel wasn't quite 5-star enough. When I'd given her my mother's diamond bracelet, a family heirloom passed down for 4 generations, she'd immediately taken it to be appraised. I found the receipt in her purse when she asked me to get her phone. Appraised for resale value. Not insurance. Resale. But I told myself I was being paranoid. That this was how young people were nowadays. That I was from a different generation. That Tuesday evening, I'd made Derek's favorite meal. Pot roast with roasted vegetables and homemade biscuits. The recipe I'd learned from my own mother. The meal I'd made every Sunday when Derek was growing up, because it was the one thing that never failed to make him smile. They were late. 45 minutes late. The roast was getting dry. I texted Derek, "Dinner's ready whenever you are." "No rush." He responded 20 minutes later. "Be there in 5. V had to stop at the store." They arrived an hour after the original dinner time. Victoria was carrying shopping bags from Nordstrom. $1,500 worth of clothes, I'd later discover. Charged to the credit card they'd convinced me to co-sign for emergencies only. "Sorry we're late, Mom," Derek said, kissing my cheek. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes that worried me. Work was crazy. "It's fine, honey," I said, even though the roast was now definitely overdone and the biscuits were cold. "Sit down. I'll warm everything up." Victoria didn't apologize. She never did. She just sat at my table, in my house, scrolling through her phone while I reheated the meal I'd spent 3 hours preparing. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Derek pushed food around his plate like a child avoiding vegetables. Victoria ate quickly, mechanically, like the meal was an obligation rather than something to be enjoyed or appreciated. "So," I said, trying to fill the heavy silence, "how's work going, Victoria?" "Fine," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Derek mentioned you were up for a promotion?" "Didn't get it." Her tone was flat, bitter, like the words tasted bad in her mouth. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." "Maybe next time. Maybe if Derek made more money, I wouldn't have to work so hard," Victoria interrupted, finally looking up. Her eyes were cold. So cold, like looking into a frozen lake. Maybe if his mother hadn't raised him to be so comfortable with mediocrity, he'd actually have some ambition. The room froze. Derek's fork clattered onto his plate, the sound impossibly loud in the sudden silence. "Victoria," he said quietly. "Warning." "What?" She shrugged, completely unbothered. "It's true. Your mom babied you your whole life, made sure you never had to struggle for anything. And now look at you, 35 years old, middle management at your dad's old company, living in a condo you can't even afford without mommy's help." Every word was a knife, precise, intentional, designed to wound. "That's not fair," I said, keeping my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking under the table. "I did the best I could. His father died 28 years ago, Margaret." Victoria's voice was sharp as broken glass. "At some point, you need to stop using that as an excuse for why your son has no backbone." Derek stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "We're leaving." "Good," Victoria said, grabbing her designer purse, the one I'd helped pay for last Christmas. The food was dry anyway, they left. Derek didn't look at me, didn't apologize, didn't defend me beyond those 2 words. Just followed his wife out my door like a puppy following its master. I sat at that table for 2 hours after they left, staring at the uneaten food. 3 places set, 2 barely touched. Mine completely untouched because I'd been too busy serving them to eat. I cleaned up the dishes. Put the leftovers in containers Derek would never come back to pick up. Went to bed with a heavy heart, wondering what I'd done wrong. Wondering where I'd lost my son. Wondering if Victoria was right. If I'd somehow ruined Derek by loving him too much. And that's when I heard them. My bedroom window faces the driveway. They must have forgotten that. Or maybe they didn't care. Maybe they thought the closed window was enough to muffle their voices. But it was a warm March evening, one of the first truly pleasant nights of spring. I had the window cracked open to let in the fresh air. Their voices drifted up from the driveway. Clear as day, every word. "I can't believe you let her talk to you like that." Derek's voice. Frustrated. Defensive. "Someone has to tell you the truth," Victoria shot back. "Your mother treats you like you're still 12 years old. It's pathetic. She's trying to help. She's trying to control you, Derek. Don't you see that? The house down payment she helped with? The car loan she co-signed? The family emergency account she insisted on setting up? It's all about control. She keeps you dependent on her so she can continue playing the martyr mother who sacrificed everything for her poor fatherless son." "That's not—" Derek started, but his voice trailed off, uncertain. "Wake up." Victoria's voice rose now, sharp, cutting through the spring night. "Your mother is sitting on $1 million property in a neighborhood that's been gentrifying for 5 years. She has a retirement fund that's probably worth $300,000, maybe more. You're her only child. That money, that house, it's supposed to be your inheritance. But instead, she dangles it over your head like a carrot while treating you like a child who can't be trusted to make his own decisions." Silence, long enough that I thought maybe Derek was disagreeing. Maybe he was defending me. Maybe my son was still in there somewhere. "We need that money, Derek," Victoria continued, her voice softer now. Manipulative, the tone you'd use with a scared animal. "If we had that house, we could sell it. The market's hot right now. We could easily get 1.2 million, maybe 1.3. We could buy something better in the suburbs. Invest the rest? Build a real life instead of living paycheck to paycheck in that cramped condo while your mother rattles around alone in a 4-bedroom house she doesn't even need anymore. What are you suggesting? Derek's voice was barely audible, but he didn't sound horrified. He sounded curious. I'm not suggesting anything, Victoria said carefully. I'm just saying, your mom is 64. That's not that old, but it's not young either. And she still works those long shifts at the hospital. 12-hour shifts on her feet. At her age. One bad fall in a patient's room. One medication mix-up when she's exhausted. One little accident and... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The implication hung in the spring air like poison. Jesus, Victoria. Derek sounded shocked. Finally. Are you seriously saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying we can't wait forever. I'm saying we deserve that money more than whatever charity she'll probably leave it to out of spite when she dies at 95. I'm saying that sometimes. Unfortunate things happen to elderly people, especially ones who overwork themselves and refuse to slow down. And when those unfortunate things happen, their families shouldn't feel guilty about benefiting from it. It's just the natural order of things. That's... Derek's voice was weak, uncertain. That's really dark, V. That's realistic, Victoria corrected. Look, I'm not saying we do anything. I'm just saying we shouldn't feel guilty if something happens naturally. And maybe we don't go out of our way to prevent the inevitable, you know? Their car doors slammed. The engine started. They drove away into the night, and I lay in my bed, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, wondering if I'd really just heard my daughter-in-law suggest that my death would be financially convenient for them. Wondering if my son had protested strongly enough. Wondering if I was safe in my own home. I told myself I was overreacting. That I'd misunderstood. That Victoria was just venting frustration in a really inappropriate way. And Derek had clearly been uncomfortable with the conversation. But deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, I knew. I knew that something fundamental had shifted, that the battle lines had been drawn, that my own family, the family I'd built with my own 2 hands, nurtured with my own sacrifices, was now a threat to me. I just didn't know yet how bad it would get. 2 weeks after that dinner, I collapsed at work. I was in the middle of my shift, checking on a patient in room 412, when my chest suddenly tightened. The room spun. My vision tunneled. I remember thinking very clearly, this is what a heart attack feels like. I remember grabbing the bed rail to steady myself. And then I remember nothing until I woke up in the ER with Dr. Patel looking down at me with concerned eyes. Margaret, he said gently, your heart is fine. Structurally, functionally, you're perfectly healthy. This was a severe panic attack. A panic attack? I'd been a nurse for 42 years. I'd never had a panic attack in my life. Not when my husband died. Not when I was working 3 jobs to keep Derek in private school. Not during any of the countless crises I'd faced. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it happened, Dr. Patel said firmly. Your blood pressure was dangerously high. You were hyperventilating. Margaret, when's the last time you felt genuinely relaxed? When's the last time you weren't worried about something? I couldn't remember. I'm keeping you overnight for observation, he continued, and I'm prescribing something for anxiety. You need to take this seriously, Margaret. Stress kills. You know that better than anyone. They moved me to a private room on the cardiac observation floor. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd worked on this floor for 15 years. I knew every inch of it. The squeaky wheel on the medication cart. The way the fluorescent light in room 428 flickered. The coffee machine in the nurse's station that only worked if you hit it on the left side. Now I was a patient here. Lying in a bed I'd made up for thousands of other patients. Wearing a hospital gown I'd helped order in bulk. Being monitored by machines I could operate in my sleep. The nurse who admitted me was Elena Martinez. I'd trained her 7 years ago when she first started at County General. Smart. Compassionate. The kind of nurse who actually cared about patients as people, not just as room numbers and diagnoses. Mrs. Hayes, she said softly, checking my vitals with practiced efficiency. I called your emergency contact. Your son should be here soon. Thank you, Elena. She hesitated, her hand on my wrist taking my pulse. Are you okay? I mean, beyond the medical stuff. You seem... She trailed off, but her eyes were concerned. Knowing. Stressed, I finished. I know. If you ever need to talk, Elena said quietly, glancing at the door to make sure we were alone. I'm a good listener. And I'm discreet. Sometimes nurses see things that doctors miss. I'll remember that. She nodded and left to file my charts. I lay there alone, staring at the ceiling tiles I'd stared at so many times before from the other side, counting the holes in the acoustic panels, listening to the familiar sounds of the cardiac floor, trying not to think about Victoria's words echoing in my head. One little accident, and... Derek and Victoria arrived 30 minutes later. I could hear them in the hallway before I saw them. Victoria's voice, sharp and irritated, carrying clearly through the thin walls. This is ridiculous. It's just a panic attack. They're keeping her overnight for a panic attack? Do you know how much this is going to cost? She collapsed, V. They have to make sure what? That they can bill insurance for a full hospital stay? Victoria laughed. It was an ugly sound, cold. Your mother is a nurse. She knows every trick in the book to game the system. This is probably all for attention. That's not, oh, please. She collapsed at work where everyone could see her and immediately fuss over her. She's playing the victim. Again. The door opened. Their expressions changed instantly, shifted like masks being put on. Concerned. Loving. Completely false. Mom! Derek rushed to my bedside, grabbing my hand. Are you okay? What happened? The hospital said you collapsed. I'm fine, honey. Just a little scare. They're being extra cautious. Victoria stood by the door, checking her phone. Not even pretending to care. Well, since you're fine, we should probably get going. Derek has work tomorrow. Early meeting. Actually, Derek said, and for a moment I heard strength in his voice. I was thinking I'd stay, keep Mom company for a while. Victoria's expression hardened. Her eyes went cold. Derek, she's fine. The nurse said it was just stress. She doesn't need a babysitter. I want to stay, Derek said, not looking at his wife, still holding my hand. For a brief moment, one shining moment, I saw a flash of the boy I'd raised. The one who'd brought me dandelions from the yard and called them flowers. The one who'd cried at sad movies and always stood up for kids being bullied at school. The one who'd hugged me after his father's funeral and whispered, "It's okay, Mom. We'll be okay together." Fine, Victoria said, her voice like ice. I'll be in the car. Call me when you're done playing devoted son. She turned and left without another word, without even looking at me. The room was silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor and the distant sounds of the hospital continuing its endless work. Derek, I said softly. You don't have to stay, really, I'll be fine. They're just observing me. He sat in the chair next to my bed, still holding my hand. Mom, I'm sorry. About the dinner. About what Victoria said to you. She's been under a lot of stress with work, and it's okay, sweetheart. It's not okay. He finally looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. She shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I should have defended you more strongly. I should have. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His expression changed again. Shuddered. Closed off. I should go, he said abruptly, standing up. V's waiting. But I'll come back tomorrow to pick you up, okay? Okay, I said, even though we both knew he probably wouldn't. He kissed my forehead, a quick, guilty gesture, and left. I lay there alone, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway. Listening to the elevator ding. Listening to the silence that felt heavier than any noise. That's when my phone rang. Loud in the quiet room. I reached for it on the bedside table, but I wasn't fast enough. Derek had already left it face down after checking his text. I picked it up and looked at the missed call notification. James Morgan. My financial advisor. Why would James be calling me at 8 p.m. on a weekday? We had a standing appointment once a quarter, Our next meeting wasn't for another month. I called him back immediately, a sick feeling growing in my stomach. Margaret! He sounded relieved. Thank God, I've been trying to reach you. There's been some unusual activity on your accounts that I need to discuss with you immediately. My blood ran cold. What kind of activity? Someone attempted to transfer $50,000 from your retirement fund to an external account this morning at 15 a.m. The bank's fraud detection system flagged it as suspicious and stopped the transfer. But Margaret, this is serious. This wasn't a hack or identity theft. The transfer request came through the family account portal. The one you set up with your son as a co-holder for emergencies. The room tilted. My heart monitor started beeping faster. Derek? I whispered. The digital signature matches his login credentials. Margaret, I need to ask you directly. Did you authorize your son to transfer $50,000 from your retirement fund? No. My voice was hollow, empty. No, I didn't. Then we have a problem. This is financial elder abuse. It's a felony. I need to report this to— Wait, I interrupted. My mind was racing. James, can you remove Derek from the account? Tonight, right now? Margaret, it's after business hours. I can start the process first thing tomorrow morning. Now, James, please. My voice broke. Call whoever you need to call. Wake up whoever you need to wake up. I want him off my accounts before he tries again. Before he succeeds next time. There was a long pause. When James spoke again, his voice was gentle. Too gentle. Margaret, are you safe? Do you need me to call someone? The police? Adult Protective Services? The question hit me like a physical blow. Adult Protective Services. Like I was some helpless old woman who couldn't take care of herself. Like I was a victim, but wasn't I? Wasn't that exactly what I was becoming? Just do it, James, please. Remove him from everything. And send me a full accounting of all transactions on every account he's had access to. I need to know exactly what he's been doing. I'll make the calls right now. And Margaret, you need to document everything. Get a lawyer. This kind of financial manipulation, it's criminal. You have grounds to press charges. After we hung up, I lay in that hospital bed, in a room I'd worked in for years, surrounded by equipment I knew how to operate, on a floor where I'd saved countless lives, and I realized something terrifying. I wasn't safe. Not from strangers, not from disease, not from accidents. I wasn't safe from my own son. But I was about to discover that attempted theft was just the beginning. The night shift at County General is always quiet. Not peaceful. A hospital is never truly peaceful, but quiet in a specific way. Fewer visitors, dimmed lights, the world outside shrinking down to just the patients and the staff who care for them. I should have been sleeping. Dr. Patel had given me something to help me rest. But how could I sleep? How could I close my eyes knowing what I now knew about my son? So I lay there in the dark, watching the door, watching shadows move in the hallway, listening to the sounds of the night shift, hushed conversations at the nurse's station, the squeak of medication carts, the occasional beep of a call button. At 11:47 p.m., I heard voices outside my door, low, urgent. I recognized one immediately. Victoria, are you sure she's asleep? Her whisper was just barely audible through the door. She took the sedative an hour ago. She should be out. Derek's voice, my son's voice, discussing me like I was a problem to be solved. The door opened slowly, quietly. They crept into my room like thieves in the night. I kept my eyes closed. Kept my breathing slow and even, deep and regular, like someone in a medicated sleep. I felt them move closer to my bed. Felt Victoria's presence like cold air on my skin. Check the monitors, she whispered. Make sure they're not recording. They're not, Derek whispered back. I asked the nurse. They only record if there's a cardiac event or if someone manually activates them. Good. Did you disable the call button? Yeah. Unplugged it when we came in. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to keep breathing steadily. What were they doing? What were they planning? She knows, Victoria said. About the account. Morgan definitely told her. That's why she had him lock us out. I know. Derek's voice was tight with anger. $50,000. We were so close. So now what? She's going to cut you out completely. Change her will. We'll end up with nothing after everything we've put up with. What are you suggesting? The question hung in the air. Heavy. Dangerous. The doctor said it was a panic attack, Victoria said slowly. Stress-induced. But panic attacks can trigger real cardiac events in people her age, especially if they're already under stress. What are you saying, V? I'm saying, what if she had another episode? A worse one? What if her heart couldn't take it this time? Silence, long and terrible. How? Derek finally asked. His voice was barely a whisper, but he asked. He didn't say no. He didn't refuse. He asked how. Look at her, Ivy, Victoria said. I could hear her moving closer, feel her shadow fall across my closed eyes. Saline drip. Standard. But if someone were to inject something into the IV line, something that would cause cardiac arrest, in a hospital, in the cardiac unit, surrounded by all this equipment, it would just look like she'd had a heart attack. They'd code her, try to save her, but with her age and the stress she's been under, they'd probably fail. And even if they didn't, the hypoxic brain damage would be severe. She'd be a vegetable. Either way, we'd have power of attorney and control of her assets. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. This was real. This wasn't just talk. Victoria was actively planning my murder. Right here. Right now. Standing over my hospital bed. We don't have anything to inject, Derek said. Not, that's crazy. Not, we can't kill my mother. Just a practical objection about logistics. You work at your dad's old pharmaceutical company. Derek, you have access to the medical supply warehouse. Potassium chloride. Causes cardiac arrest almost immediately when injected in high doses directly into the bloodstream. We could get some tomorrow. Come back tomorrow night. Someone's coming, Derek hissed suddenly. They moved away from my bed quickly. I heard the door open. Oh! A voice I recognized. Elena, the nurse who'd admitted me. I didn't realize Mrs. Hayes had visitors. Visiting hours ended at 9. We were just leaving, Victoria said smoothly. Just wanted to check on her one more time before bed. You know how it is. Family worries. Of course, Elena said, but her voice was careful, suspicious. Well, she needs her rest. Doctor's orders. We understand. Come on, Derek, they left. I heard their footsteps fade down the hallway. Heard the elevator ding. Waited until there was nothing but silence and the steady beep of the heart monitor. Then I opened my eyes. Elena was standing by the door, looking at me. Our eyes met. You were awake, she said. It wasn't a question. Every word, I confirmed. Elena came to my bedside quickly, checking the IV line. Did they touch anything? Your IV, your monitors, anything? I don't think so. You interrupted them before... My voice broke. Elena, they were planning to kill me. My own son was planning to kill me. I know, Elena said grimly. I was listening outside. I had a feeling. When I saw them come in so late, something felt wrong. So I stayed close. She pulled out her phone. I recorded everything. I have the whole conversation. I stared at her. You recorded it? Margaret, I've been a nurse for 28 years. I've seen elder abuse more times than I can count. Financial exploitation, emotional manipulation, and yes, sometimes attempted murder. I've learned to trust my instincts. And my instincts said your family wasn't here to hold your hand and pray for you. She played back the recording. Crystal clear. Every word. Victoria explaining how to cause a cardiac arrest. Derek asking how instead of, why the hell would we do that? This is evidence, Elena said. This is attempted conspiracy to commit murder. We need to call the police right now. And tell them what? I was shaking now, the adrenaline finally hitting. That my son and his wife talked about killing me but didn't actually do anything? They'll say it's hearsay. That the recording was made without consent. That it was taken out of context. Derek will say Victoria was joking. That I misunderstood. That I'm a paranoid old woman who's trying to turn their innocent concern into something sinister. Elena was quiet, but I could see she knew I was right. Here's what I do know, I continued. My mind suddenly clear despite the shaking hands and racing heart. They're going to try again. Victoria already has the plan. Derek already said he has access to potassium chloride. They're going to come back tomorrow night and kill me. And I need to stop them. Then we call the police right now. We get a restraining order. Evidence, I interrupted. I need more evidence. Evidence that's undeniable. Evidence that shows clear intent and action, not just talk. Margaret, you're talking about letting them try to kill you just to catch them in the act. That's insane. That's justice, I said firmly. Because if I report this now, they'll walk away with a slap on the wrist at most. But if I catch them actually attempting to murder me, that's life in prison. That's real consequences. You're out of your mind. Probably, I agreed. But I'm also absolutely certain. Elena, will you help me? She stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "'Kay," she said. "But we do this smart. And we do it safe. You're not actually going to let them inject you with anything. Of course not. But they need to think they can. They need to think I'm vulnerable. What are you thinking?" I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who'd finally had enough. A woman who was done being a victim. "I'm thinking," I said slowly, "that it's time to show Derek and Victoria exactly what happens when you underestimate a 64-year-old nurse who's been working in hospitals for longer than they've been alive." What Victoria and Derek didn't know was that every hospital room has secrets, and I knew them all. Elena and I spent the rest of that night planning. She brought me coffee from the nurses' station, real coffee, not the terrible stuff they gave patients, and we worked out every detail. "First," Elena said, pulling up a chair and speaking in low tones, "we need to make sure you're actually safe. I'm going to put you on continuous cardiac monitoring. If anything happens to your heart rate or rhythm, it'll trigger alarms at the nurses' station and security will be here in 30 seconds. Won't Derek notice the monitoring?" "Not if we do it right. The electrodes will be under your gown. The monitor will be behind your bed. And I'll tell him and Victoria that Dr. Patel ordered it as a standard precaution after your panic attack. They won't question it." Smart. "Second," Elena continued, "we replace your IV bag with a new one that I'll personally prepare and seal. If they manage to inject anything into the line, it'll be diluted enough that it won't hurt you, but concentrated enough that we can test it and prove what they did. Is that safe? I'm going to put you on the slowest possible drip rate. If they inject something, you'll get maybe 5 cc before the monitor alarms trigger. Not enough to cause real damage, but enough to prove intent. What about security cameras?" "That's the tricky part," Elena admitted. "The hallways have cameras. Your room doesn't. Patient privacy. But," she pulled out her phone, "I have a friend in hospital security. She owes me a favor. A big one. I saved her son's life last year when he came in with sepsis. I'm going to ask her to temporarily install a hidden camera in your room. Technically against policy, but given that we're trying to prevent a murder, I think we can get away with it. And if Derek and Victoria actually show up tomorrow night with potassium chloride, then we have them on camera attempting to murder you. And that, combined with the recording from tonight, is enough to send them to prison for a very, very long time." I nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." "Margaret," Elena said seriously, "you need to understand the risks. If something goes wrong, if they move faster than we expect, if the monitors don't alarm quickly enough—" "I understand," I interrupted, "and I accept the risks. Because the alternative is spending the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering when they're going to try again. Wondering if they'll succeed next time. At least this way I have control. This way I end it on my terms," Elena nodded. "Okay then. Get some sleep. Real sleep this time. I'll make sure you're safe. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." But I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Derek. About the little boy who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms. About the teenager who'd held my hand during his father's funeral. About the young man who'd cried when I'd helped him move into his first apartment. Where had that person gone? When did he become someone who could ask how when his wife suggested murdering his mother? Or had he always been this person, and I'd just been too blind to see it. Had my love for him created a monster? Had my sacrifices taught him that people, especially mothers, were meant to be used and discarded when they were no longer useful? The questions circled in my mind like vultures, but I had no answers. Only the cold certainty that tomorrow night, I would learn exactly who my son had become. The next day passed in a strange blur. Dr. Patel discharged me with prescriptions for anti-anxiety medication and instructions to reduce stress. "Take time off work," he said. "Rest, maybe take a vacation. Do something that makes you happy." If only he knew. Elena helped me check out, but actually moved me to an empty room too. Floors up. A private room in the geriatric wing that was being renovated and was temporarily unused. The perfect hiding spot. "You'll stay here tonight," Elena explained. "Your official room, 412, will look occupied. We'll have a dummy in the bed, IV line in place, monitors hooked up. To anyone looking through the door window, it'll look like you're sleeping. And the camera? Already installed. Hidden in the smoke detector. It has night vision and audio. Feeds directly to hospital security and to my phone. If Derek and Victoria show up, we'll catch everything." "What about you? Won't you be on shift?" I switched with another nurse. "I'll be here, but I'll stay out of sight. Just close enough to intervene if something goes wrong." "Elena," I said, touching her arm, "why are you doing this? You could lose your job. Your license, everything," she smiled sadly. "Because 2 years ago, my mother died of a heart attack in her sleep. She was 67, healthy, active. And my brother had been trying to convince her to change her will to give him more money. After she died, I found out he'd been giving her sleeping pills, lots of them, mixed into her nightly tea. The autopsy missed it because nobody was looking for it. Nobody suspected murder because who would think a son would kill his own mother? Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I didn't save my mother, Margaret. But I'll be damned if I let your son kill you. So no, I'm not risking my license. I'm using it exactly as it was meant to be used, to protect patients from harm. Even when that harm comes from their own family." We hugged. A real hug. The kind that says everything words can't. That evening, I sat in my temporary room watching the sun set through a window that faced west. Watching the sky turn gold, then pink, then deep purple. Watching the day die and night be born, and I waited. At 11:32 p.m., my phone, which Elena had set to silent, lit up with a notification. A text from Elena. "They're here. Both of them. Just got off the elevator. Derek's carrying something in his jacket pocket." My heart started pounding, but I forced myself to breathe deeply, calmly. This was it. This was the moment when I'd finally know the truth. On my phone screen, I could see the camera feed from room 412, the dark room. The figure in the bed, a collection of pillows and blankets shaped to look human. The IV line hanging from the pole connected to nothing. The door opened. Derek and Victoria slipped inside, moving like shadows. "Check the monitors," Victoria whispered. Derek moved to the equipment. "She's off continuous monitoring." "Just the standard alarms? Perfect." "Did you bring it?" Derek pulled a small vial from his pocket. Even on the grainy camera feed, I could read the label. Potassium chloride. Injectable. 40 mec 20 ml. Enough to stop a human heart in minutes. "How much?" Derek asked. His voice was steady, calm, like he was asking how much salt to add to a recipe. "All of it," Victoria said. "We need to be sure. Inject it directly into the IV port. It'll go straight into her bloodstream. She'll go into cardiac arrest within 60 seconds. By the time anyone responds to the alarms, she'll be gone." Derek moved to the bed, uncapped the needle, reached for the IV line. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. One last moment of hesitation. "You want to spend the rest of your life working for your dad's company, living in that tiny condo, begging your mother for money every time we need anything? Or do you want to be free, to be rich, to finally live the life you deserve?" Derek hesitated for one more second. Then he plunged the needle into the IV port and pushed the plunger. Nothing happened. Of course nothing happened. There was no patient in the bed. No IV actually connected to a human body, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that they'd done it. They'd actually tried to kill me, and I had it all on camera. The lights in room 412 suddenly blazed on. Hospital security burst through the door. Elena was right behind them. Freeze! Hospital security! Get your hands where we can see them. Derek and Victoria spun around, shock written across their faces. What? What is this? Derek stammered. This, Elena said, stepping forward with her phone held high. The camera feed playing clearly on the screen. Is you attempting to murder your mother with a lethal injection of potassium chloride? Which, by the way, is a felony. Victoria's face went white. Derek looks like he might vomit. That's not... We weren't... Victoria started. Save it, Elena said coldly. I have video. I have audio. I have the syringe with your fingerprints on it. And I have a vial of hospital-grade potassium chloride that was reported stolen from medical supply this afternoon. Theft that was caught on security cameras showing you. Derek, using your employee access to take it. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer, Derek's eyes were wild, panicked. Where's my mother? Where is she? Is she okay? Your mother, Elena said, is exactly where you wanted her to be. Dead to you, though unlike what you planned, she's still breathing. That's when I stepped into the room. Alive. Awake. And absolutely done with being anyone's victim. Derek's face crumpled when he saw me. Mom, he whispered. Mom, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. Victoria made me do it. Don't, I said quietly. Don't insult me by lying now, Derek. I heard you. Both nights. I know exactly what this is. This is attempted murder. This is you choosing money over your own mother. This is who you really are. Police flooded into the room. Handcuffs. Miranda rights. Derek crying. Victoria screaming that it was a misunderstanding, that they were just checking on me, that the vial was planted. But I had evidence. Undeniable. Irrefutable. And as they led my son away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. I'm sorry, he mouthed, but sorry doesn't bring back the dead. And I knew, in that moment, that even though I'd survived, something had died anyway. My son. The one I'd loved. The one I'd raised. That person was gone, and I would spend the rest of my life mourning him. The arrests made headlines. Local pharmaceutical employee arrested in attempted murder of mother. Daughter-in-law caught on camera planning hospital murder. The story was everywhere. Local news, social media, even picked up by a few national outlets fascinated by the audacity of it all. Derek and Victoria were released on bail within 48 hours. $100,000 each, posted by Victoria's parents who believed their daughter's story that this was all a terrible misunderstanding, orchestrated by Derek's mentally unstable mother. I sat in Attorney Marcus, Webb's office 3 days after the arrest, listening to him explain the harsh reality of the justice system. Mrs. Hayes, Marcus said, steepling his fingers on his mahogany desk. I need to be honest with you. This case isn't as strong as we'd like it to be. They tried to inject me with potassium chloride, I said flatly. On camera. With audio? How is that not strong enough? Because they didn't actually inject you, Marcus explained. They injected a dummy, a collection of pillows. No actual victim was harmed. Any decent defense attorney, and Victoria's family has hired one of the best in the state, is going to argue that this was entrapment. That you set them up. That they never actually intended to go through with it and were just testing the plan to murder me. I know, I believe you. But juries are unpredictable. They'll see a 35-year-old man crying on the stand, talking about how his demanding mother controlled his life. They'll see a well-dressed young woman who looks like she could be their daughter, talking about a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. They'll see you, a nurse with access to hospital equipment and security, and they'll wonder if maybe you manipulated the situation. So they walk free? After everything? Marcus sighed. Probably not free. The prosecutor is pushing for attempted murder charges, which carry up to 25 years. But realistically, with their legal team and no actual harm done, I'd expect a plea deal. Maybe conspiracy to commit fraud. Maybe assault with intent. They might get 5 years, serve 2 with good behavior. Maybe even just probation and restraining orders. I felt the rage building in my chest like a physical pressure. 2 years. For planning to murder their own mother. I'm sorry, Margaret. The system isn't perfect. I sat there in silence thinking about Derek crying as they led him away. Thinking about Victoria's cold, calculating eyes. Thinking about them walking free in 2 years, inheriting my money when I actually died, living the life they'd planned to build on my corpse. No, that wasn't justice. What if, I said slowly, there was another way to make sure they faced real consequences? Not just legal consequences, but social consequences. Public consequences. The kind that follow you forever. Marcus looked at me carefully. What are you thinking, Margaret? I'm thinking, I said, meeting his eyes, that I want to fake my death, have a funeral, and expose them publicly in a way that no plea deal can erase. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, That's insane. I know. It's possibly illegal. I know. It could backfire spectacularly. I'm willing to take that risk. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Why? Why not just let the legal system handle this? Why risk everything for what? Revenge? Not revenge, I corrected. Justice. Real justice. The kind where everyone knows exactly what they did. Where their friends and family and everyone who ever trusted them sees who they really are. Where they can't hide behind expensive lawyers and crocodile tears. Where the truth is undeniable. And how exactly do you plan to fake your own death convincingly enough that Derek and Victoria believe it? I have friends, I said, in places that matter. A doctor who believes in what I'm trying to do. A nurse who's seen too many elderly people abused by their families. A funeral director who specializes in unconventional cases. And I have savings that I was going to leave to Derek. Might as well spend it on something worthwhile. Marcus studied me for a long time. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. You know what? He said. I've been a lawyer for 32 years. I've seen a lot of injustice. A lot of people who deserved punishment walk free. And I've never seen someone fight back quite like you're proposing. So here's what I'll say. I can't officially advise you to fake your death. That would be professionally irresponsible. But if you were to do it anyway, and if you were to document everything carefully and make sure that at no point were you breaking any actual laws, well, I might be interested in representing you when the dust settles. So you'll help? Let's say I'll look the other way while you help yourself. And if you need someone to review documents or explain legal technicalities or connect you with people who can assist in creative solutions, well, I'm always available for consultation. I left his office with a plan forming in my mind. A plan so audacious, so risky, so completely insane that it just might work. Dr. Sarah Chen was the first person I approached. She was a cardiologist at Mercy General, 3 miles from County General where I'd been attacked. More importantly, she was an expert witness in elder abuse cases and had testified in 17 trials, helping convict family members who'd abused elderly relatives. Elena had connected us, and we met at a small cafe far from both hospitals. Elena told me what you want to do, Dr. Chen said without preamble, sitting down across from me with a black coffee. It's brilliant and insane in equal measure. Will you help? Tell me exactly what you need. I laid it out for her. I need to die of cardiac arrest. Believable. Documented. With you as the attending physician who pronounces me dead. The death certificate needs to be legitimate, or at least legitimate enough that it holds up to casual scrutiny. And I need it to happen in a way that doesn't implicate you or cost you your medical license. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. There's a way to do this. Medical training facilities use incredibly realistic dummies for emergency response training. Full size, anatomically correct, with synthetic skin that even feels real. If one of those dummies were to code in an emergency room with you having recently been discharged after cardiac symptoms, I could pronounce it dead without actually examining the body too closely, especially if the face was damaged or obscured, maybe from a fall. Maybe from the cardiac event itself causing facial trauma. Would that work? If we do it right, yes. The key is the death certificate. I can't sign a fraudulent death certificate. That's a felony. But I can sign a death certificate for a Jane Doe who dies in my ER. And then if there's a clerical error that assigns your name to that certificate due to a mix-up with medical records, well, mistakes happen in hospitals all the time. What about the funeral home? That's where you need Jerome, Dr. Chen said. Jerome Washington runs Restful Haven Memorial Services. He's helped 3 other women in similar situations over the past decade. Battered wives faking their deaths to escape abusive husbands, elderly people escaping financial abuse from adult children. He knows how to make this work. I met Jerome that same afternoon. His funeral home was elegant but not ostentatious, exactly what you'd want for a final resting place. He was in his mid-60s, dignified, with kind eyes that had seen too much pain. Dr. Chen told me about your situation, Jerome said, gesturing for me to sit in his office. And I want you to know something first. I don't do this for just anyone. I do it for people who've exhausted every other option. People who need to disappear to survive. People who deserve a second chance at life free from abuse. Are you that person, Mrs. Hayes? Yes, I said without hesitation. My son tried to kill me for my money. The legal system is going to give him a slap on the wrist. And if I don't do something drastic, he'll try again in 2 years, 5 years, whenever he gets out. And next time, I might not see it coming. Jerome nodded slowly. Then here's how we do this. You die at Mercy General under Dr. Chen's care. Your body is transferred to my funeral home. But instead of your body, I receive the medical training dummy. I prepare it for a closed casket funeral, which will be easy to justify given the nature of the cardiac event and facial trauma. Your son plans the funeral, invites everyone, says his final goodbye. And then I walk in and expose everything, I finished. Not quite, Jerome corrected. You don't physically walk in. That's too dangerous and too dramatic. Instead, you live stream. From a secure location. You have cameras hidden in the funeral home capturing everything. And at the critical moment, maybe during the eulogy, maybe during the reception, you go live on every platform you can. You show the world exactly who your family really is. Can you install cameras without them knowing? Jerome smiled. Mrs. Hayes, I've been in the funeral business for 40 years. I know where every blind spot is. I know how to hide a camera in a flower arrangement, in a picture frame, in the crown molding. Derek and Victoria won't see them. But you'll see everything they do. How much will this cost? For you? Nothing. I'm retired military. I've seen what it looks like when people abandon the ones who fought for them. Your son is no different than the politicians who send soldiers to die and then forget about them. You earned your money. You raised him alone. He tried to kill you for it. This one's on the house. I felt tears prick my eyes. Jerome, I can't let you. You can and you will, he said firmly. The only thing I ask is that when this is over, when your story goes viral, and it will go viral, Mrs. Hayes, you use that platform to talk about elder abuse, to help other people in your situation, to make sure your pain serves a purpose beyond just revenge. It's not revenge, I said quietly. It's justice. Then let's deliver it. Over the next 2 weeks, we planned everything in meticulous detail. The death scene. I would collapse at home, in my living room. Patricia, my neighbor, whom I'd confided in, would call 911. The ambulance would take me to Mercy General, where Dr. Chen would be coincidentally on duty. She would work on me, or rather, work on the dummy that would be secretly swapped in during the chaos of the emergency response. She would pronounce me dead. Derek and Victoria would be called. The body transfer. The dummy, prepared by Dr. Chen's team to have my general appearance and medical history, would be transferred to Restful Haven Memorial Services. Jerome would embalm it, not really, but the paperwork would say he did. It would be prepared for a closed casket funeral due to extensive trauma. The funeral planning. Derek and Victoria would plan everything. We'd give them complete control, watching from a distance as they chose the cheapest options. invited everyone to watch them perform grief, and planned how to divide my assets. The live stream. On the day of the funeral, 12 cameras hidden throughout the funeral home would capture everything. I would watch from Jerome's house next door, and at the perfect moment, during Derek's eulogy perhaps, or during Victoria's speech, I would go live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram simultaneously. The reveal. The world would watch as I exposed them, as I showed the hospital recordings of them planning to kill me, as I confronted them in front of everyone they'd ever known. It was perfect, diabolical, and completely legal. Technically, I wasn't faking my death. I was simply allowing a mistaken death certificate to stand temporarily before correcting it. No fraud, no crime, just a very public correction of a very public mistake. One question, I said to Jerome as we finalized the plans. What happens after? When I come back from being dead? You live, Jerome said simply, free from them, free from fear, free from the burden of pretending that family means anything when they've tried to kill you. You live, Margaret. That's what happens. You finally, truly live. The technical aspects of the live stream were handled by Marcus's nephew, a 27-year-old tech entrepreneur named David, who'd made his fortune creating security systems for high-risk clients. This is the wildest thing I've ever been asked to do, David said, setting up equipment in Jerome's house. And I once installed security for a Saudi prince who was paranoid about assassination attempts. Can you do it? I asked. Oh, I can absolutely do it. 12 cameras, all streaming to a private server. You can watch in real time, and when you're ready, I've set up a system that will push the feed to all major social platforms simultaneously. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. With geotags, hashtags, and descriptions pre-written to maximize viral spread. What about Derek and Victoria finding the cameras? They won't, David said confidently. These aren't your grandma's security cameras. These are pinhole lenses hidden in smoke detectors, wall clocks, flower arrangements, even the crown molding. Professional grade. The kind intelligence agencies use. Unless Derek knows exactly what to look for and has equipment to detect them, he'll never spot them. And the live stream will be stable? No buffering, no crashes? I'm using commercial-grade equipment and a redundant fiber optic connection. Even if one system fails, the backup will kick in instantly. And I'll be here monitoring everything. If anything goes wrong technically, I can fix it in seconds. Over the next few days, David installed the cameras while the funeral home was closed. We tested every angle, every audio feed, every backup system. It was perfect. One more thing, David said as we did the final test. What are you going to say? When you go live, what's your message? I'd been thinking about that question for days. The truth, I finally said. Just the truth. I'm going to tell them exactly what happened. What Derek and Victoria tried to do. What the legal system is failing to do. And why I'm doing this. Not for revenge, but for justice. For every other elderly person being abused by family who see nothing but dollar signs when they look at their parents. That's powerful, David said softly. My grandmother went through something similar. Her son, my uncle, convinced her to sign over power of attorney, then drained her accounts and put her in a nursing home while he sold her house. By the time we found out, she had nothing. She died 6 months later, broken and alone, while my uncle bought a vacation home in Florida with her money. What happened to him? Nothing. The law said he had power of attorney, so technically he didn't break any rules. He just broke her heart and stole her dignity. But legally, he was in the clear. David met my eyes. So yeah, Mrs. Hayes, I'll make sure this live stream works perfectly. Because you're doing something my family should have done. You're fighting back. Elena visited me the night before the scheduled death. Last chance to back out, she said, sitting next to me in Jerome's spare bedroom where I'd been staying. Once this starts tomorrow, there's no stopping it. You'll be dead as far as the world is concerned, and then you'll come back to life in the most public way possible. Your life will never be the same. It's already not the same, I said. My son tried to kill me, Elena. There's no going back from that. No reconciliation. No happy ending where we hug it out and pretend it never happened. This is the only way forward. Okay, Elena said, squeezing my hand. Then let's do this. Let's show the world what real justice looks like. The next morning, I ate breakfast at Jerome's house, made my bed, brushed my teeth, did all the normal, mundane things you do when your day is normal. Except my day wasn't normal. My day was the day I would die. At 10:47 a.m., I walked to my house, the house I'd lived in for 30 years, the house I'd raised Derek in, the house they'd wanted badly enough to kill me for. I stood in the living room, looking at the photos on the wall. Derek as a baby. Derek's first day of school. Derek graduating high school. Derek's wedding day. A whole life captured in photographs. A life that had led to this moment. Patricia was already there as planned. We'd rehearsed this a dozen times. Are you ready? She asked quietly. Yes, I said. Call 911. Tell them I collapsed. Tell them I'm not breathing. And Patricia? Thank you. For believing me. For helping me. She hugged me quickly, fiercely. Go hide in the basement. When the ambulance comes, stay down there until they leave with the dummy. Then come back to Jerome's house through the back gate. And Margaret? Give them hell. I went to the basement and waited. Listened to Patricia's panicked voice calling 911. Listened to the sirens approaching. Listened to the paramedics rushing in. Their urgent voices, the controlled chaos of an emergency. Response. Listened to them loading the medical dummy prepared by Dr. Chen's team to look, enough like me to pass a quick examination, into the ambulance. Listened to them drive away, and then, in the sudden silence of my empty house, I cried. Not for my death, but for the death of the relationship I'd once had with my son. For the future that would never exist. For the grandmother I'd never be to grandchildren that Derek and Victoria would never have because no amount of money was worth bringing children into their poisonous marriage. I cried for all of it. And then I dried my tears, walked through the back gate to Jerome's house, and prepared to watch my own funeral. The funeral was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Beautiful spring morning, birds singing, flowers blooming, the kind of day that makes you grateful to be alive. I sat in Jerome's living room with my laptop, watching 12 different camera angles of my own funeral home. Watching the first mourners arrive, friends from work, neighbors, people from my church, all of them signing the guest book, dabbing their eyes, genuinely sad. At 9:45 a.m., Derek's car pulled into the parking lot, and that's when I saw it. That's when I saw Victoria step out of the passenger seat wearing a white dress, not cream, not off-white, not ivory, pure, stark wedding dress white, knee-length, expensive, designer. She wore it with pearl earrings and white heels, her hair styled in perfect waves, her makeup flawless. She looked like she was going to a garden party. Not her mother-in-law's funeral, Elena, who was sitting next to me watching the feeds, gasped. She didn't. She did, I said, my voice cold and hard. On camera, I watched people's reactions. The double takes. The shocked whispers. My friend Maria actually walked up to Victoria as they entered the funeral home and said, loud enough for the cameras to pick up clearly, "White? You wore white to Margaret's funeral?" Victoria smiled. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what she was doing and didn't care. Margaret once told me that she hated the tradition of wearing black to funerals. She said if people truly loved you, they should celebrate your life in colors that represent joy and new beginnings. So I chose white. Pure, hopeful, new beginnings. It was a complete lie. I'd never said anything remotely like that. But it was a brilliant lie, the kind that made Victoria seem thoughtful and caring instead of sociopathic. Maria looked unconvinced but didn't push further. She moved away, joining a group of my co-workers who were all whispering and pointing at Victoria's dress. Derek looked terrible, haggard, like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under his eyes. His suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed. He looked like a man drowning in guilt. Good. He should drown in it. Derek and Victoria stood by the closed casket, the casket containing the medical training dummy, not me. greeting mourners. Derek accepted condolences with tears in his eyes. Real tears. Victoria stood beside him, smiling softly, playing the supportive wife. "Look at her," Elena said, pointing at the screen. "She's not grieving at all. She's networking. She's literally handing out business cards." Elena was right. I zoomed in on one of the camera feeds and watched Victoria talking to a group of well-dressed people I didn't recognize. She pulled out business cards from her white designer purse and handed them out. "Victoria Morrison, marketing consultant," I could hear her say. "I'm so sorry we have to meet under these circumstances, but yes, I'd love to discuss potential opportunities once things settle down." At my funeral. She was job hunting at my funeral. At 10 a.m. sharp, Father Michael began the service. He gave a beautiful homily about love and loss and the importance of family. He talked about me, about my work as a nurse, my dedication to helping others, the sacrifice of raising Derek alone after my husband's death. Every word he said made Derek cry harder. And every word made Victoria's smile grow colder. Then it was time for the eulogy. Derek's turn to speak. He walked to the podium slowly, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. His hands were shaking. His voice was unsteady when he began. "My mother was complicated." I felt the words like a slap. Not wonderful, not loving, not the woman who sacrificed everything for me. Complicated. She loved me, Derek continued, his voice breaking, but she was also controlling. She had very strong opinions about how I should live my life, who I should marry, how I should spend my money. She meant well, but sometimes love can be suffocating. Victoria was nodding in the front row, her white dress standing out like a beacon, like a middle finger to every mourner dressed in respectful black. "When she died," Derek's voice cracked. "My first feeling, and I'm ashamed to admit this, was relief." Gasps rippled through the funeral home. This was not a typical eulogy. Relief that I could finally make my own choices. Relief that I wouldn't have to justify every decision to her. Relief that I could finally be free. He was crying openly now, tears streaming down his face. But then I realized something. I realized that freedom is lonely. That making your own choices is terrifying. That my mother, for all her faults, was the only person who truly, unconditionally loved me. He paused, wiping his eyes. "So, Mom, if you can hear me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a disappointment. I'm sorry for not being the son you deserved. And I'm sorry that you died thinking I didn't love you, because I did, I do, and I always will." He walked back to his seat. People were crying. Even I had tears in my eyes because that speech, that terrible, beautiful, manipulative speech, was Derek at his core. Always the victim, always justifying his behavior, always finding a way to make his cruelty seem like love. Then Victoria stood up. She walked to the podium in her white dress, her heels clicking on the floor. She looked out at the crowd of mourners, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and confident. "I wasn't planning to speak today. But after hearing Derek's beautiful words, I feel like I need to say something." She paused for effect. "Margaret and I had a difficult relationship. She never really accepted me as Derek's wife. She thought I wasn't good enough for him. She thought I was after his money, which is ironic, because Derek barely has any money. A few uncomfortable laughs. But despite our differences, I respected Margaret. She was a strong woman, a survivor. She raised Derek alone, which couldn't have been easy, and she built a beautiful life for herself." Victoria's smile widened. She also left behind a beautiful home. "A home that Derek and I are going to honor by transforming it. We're going to sell it and use the money to build the family that Margaret always wanted us to have. We're going to make sure her legacy lives on." More gasps. More whispers. Father Michael looked deeply uncomfortable. "So thank you, Margaret," Victoria concluded, "for everything you gave us. For your house. For your savings. For your life insurance. We promised to use it well. We promised to live the life you wanted for Derek, but were too controlling to let him have." She walked back to her seat. Derek looked pale. The funeral home was buzzing with shocked whispers, and that's when I decided it was time. I opened the live stream application, positioned my laptop camera, made sure the audio was clear, and pressed Go Live. The stream went live across all platforms simultaneously: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Within 30 seconds, 247 viewers. Within 1 minute, 1,503 viewers. Within 2 minutes, 8,942 viewers. And I hadn't even said anything yet. The title, Alone, I'm Not Dead Watching My Own Funeral Live, was enough to draw thousands of people. I took a deep breath, looked directly into the camera, and began, "Hello, everyone. My name is Margaret Hayes, and if you're watching this, you're probably very confused, because right now, there's a funeral happening for me at Restful Haven Memorial Services. 200 people are gathered there mourning my death, including my son Derek and his wife Victoria." I paused. The viewer count was climbing. 15,000, 22,000, 31,000. Except I'm not dead. As you can see, I'm very much alive. And I'm about to show you exactly why I faked my death. I switched the feed to show the split screen, my face on one side, live footage from the funeral home on the other. 3 months ago, my son and his wife tried to murder me. They planned it carefully. They waited until I was in the hospital, vulnerable and alone. And then they attempted to inject me with a lethal dose of potassium chloride, a drug that causes cardiac arrest. I played the hospital audio recording, crystal clear. Victoria's voice. "Inject it directly into the IV port. She'll go into cardiac arrest within 60 seconds. The viewer count exploded. 67,000, 94,000, 128,000. I survived because I was prepared, because I knew they were planning something. And I caught the entire attempt on camera. I showed the hospital video. Derek and Victoria sneaking into my room at midnight. Derek holding the syringe. The injection into the IV line. The police arriving. They were arrested. They were charged with attempted murder. But the legal system, the system that's supposed to protect people like me, was going to let them walk free with minimal punishment. A plea deal, maybe a few years of probation, a restraining order. I paused. That's not justice. So I decided to give them what they wanted. I decided to die. Viewer count, 203,000, 267,000, 341,000. For the past 3 weeks, they've been planning my funeral, choosing the cheapest options, inviting everyone they knew to watch them perform grief. And now, right now, you're watching them at that funeral. Watch this carefully. I switched to a feed showing Victoria in her white dress, standing next to the casket, chatting with mourners and handing out business cards. That's my daughter-in-law, Victoria, wearing white, to my funeral, because she's not mourning, she's celebrating. I showed the footage of her eulogy. We're going to sell her house and use the money to build the family Margaret always wanted us to have. Comments were exploding on all platforms. OMG, is this real? White dress at a funeral? What kind of monster? I'm watching this live from Australia. This is insane. Someone call the news stations. This is history. Viewer count, 512,000. 673,000. 891,000. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said, looking directly into the camera. I'm doing this for justice, for accountability, for every elderly person who's been abused by family members who see them as nothing but a paycheck, for every parent who sacrificed everything only to be repaid with betrayal. I showed more clips, Derek attempting the transfer of $50,000, Victoria discussing my death as convenient, the white dress shopping trip where she told a friend, I'm going to look fabulous at the old bat's funeral. Viewer count, 1.1 million, 1.4 million, 1.8 million. Derek and Victoria wanted me dead for money, for a house, for my retirement fund. They didn't want me. They wanted what I owned. So I'm making sure they never get it. I pulled out a legal document, held it up to the camera. This is my new will. As of yesterday, Derek Hayes is completely removed as a beneficiary. My house is being donated to a women's shelter. My retirement fund is going to an elder abuse prevention charity. My life insurance, which they were counting on, has been changed to benefit organizations that help families like mine. I looked into the camera. Derek, if you're watching this, and I know you are, here's what I want you to know. You killed our relationship. You killed your mother's love. You killed any chance of a future together. But you won't profit from my death. Not now, not ever. The funeral home feed showed complete chaos. People pulling out their phones, pointing at the screens. Derek collapsing into his chair. Victoria screaming at Jerome to turn it off, turn it off. But Jerome didn't turn it off. He just stood there, arms crossed, watching justice unfold. Viewer count, 2.3 million, 2.9 million, 3.4 million. To everyone watching, elder abuse is real. Financial manipulation is real. And sometimes, the people who smile and call you family are the ones planning your destruction. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself. Document everything. And never, ever let anyone make you feel guilty for defending your own life. I took a breath. I'm standing up today for every person who was told they were paranoid. Every person gaslit by their own children. Every person who died wondering if their family ever really loved them. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. And you deserve better. The live stream had reached 4.1 million viewers. News vans were already pulling up to the funeral home. I could see them on the exterior cameras. Derek and Victoria wanted me dead. So I died. And from beyond the grave, I'm telling the truth they tried to bury with me. I looked directly into the camera one last time. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 64 years old. I was a nurse for 42 years. I raised my son alone. I loved him with everything I had, and he repaid me by trying to kill me. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd finally won. But I survived. And now, the whole world knows what they did. That's justice. I ended the live stream at 52 minutes. Final viewer count, 4.7 million people watching live. Within an hour, clips were on every news network. By evening, one funeral live stream and Justice for Margaret were trending worldwide. Derek and Victoria were arrested again that afternoon. New charges: conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted grand theft, and yes, the original attempted murder charges with new evidence that made a plea deal impossible. They both got 12-year sentences, served in full, no parole. I'm sitting in my house, the house I didn't sell, the house I decided to keep after all, writing this final part of my story. The house that Derek and Victoria wanted so badly is now a safe house for elderly people escaping abusive family situations. Elena runs the program. Dr. Chen provides medical support. Jerome helps people disappear when they need to. Marcus handles the legal aspects pro bono. We've helped 47 people in 6 months. 47 people whose children stole from them, manipulated them, hurt them. People who were told they were crazy for suspecting their family. People who needed someone to believe them. My YouTube channel has 3 million subscribers. Every week, I post a new story of elder abuse and survival. I interview people who escaped. I provide resources. I connect victims with lawyers and support groups. The funeral live stream has been viewed 89 million times. It's been studied in law schools as a case study in creative justice. It's been featured in documentaries. It's been parodied on Saturday Night Live. But more importantly, it's sparked a national conversation about elder abuse, about financial manipulation, about the toxic expectation that children are entitled to their parents' money and that elderly people should be grateful for any attention, even abusive attention. Derek sent me one letter from prison. 1 page. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know I can never make this right. But I want you to know that somewhere, underneath all the greed and manipulation, the little boy who loved you still exists. And he's sorry. He's so, so sorry. I read that letter once. Then I put it in a box, with all his childhood photos, his report cards, his Mother's Day cards. I sealed it and put it in storage. Maybe someday I'll open it. Maybe someday I'll forgive him. But not today. Today, I have work to do. People to help. Lives to save. And today, I'm alive. Really, truly alive. Not just breathing, but living with purpose and power and the absolute certainty that I will never be a victim again. So that's my story. The story of how I died and came back to life. The story of how I fought back against people who thought I was too old, too weak, too loving to defend myself. Now I want to ask you something. If you were in my situation, what would you have done? Would you have faked your death like I did? Would you have trusted the legal system? Would you have confronted them privately? Or would you have done something completely different? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Your stories matter. Your opinions matter. And if you're going through something similar, please know, you're not alone. If this story resonated with you, please like this video so more people can see it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Comment with your thoughts. Subscribe for more survivor stories. Remember, you have power. You have worth, and you have the right to defend yourself, no matter what your family says. Thank you for watching my story. Until next time, stay strong, stay safe, and never let anyone make you feel small. This is Margaret Hayes, and I survived my own funeral.